Hi there, and welcome to Paladin LifeStyle's Entertainment Edition. We are here in our lovely backyard here in Fort Worth, Texas. As always,
Beautiful day here.
Matthew Boyer.
I'm Aaron Boyer.
And Cody Wayne.
Cody
Yeah.
Wayne.
Yeah, see, we
Cody
don't have
Wayne
to-
is becoming the staple for entertainment. He is.
Cody's-
Cody means entertainment.
Don't put
if,
that
if
much
you can't
on me.
figure out what a movie means, go to Cody Wayne.
Oh yeah.
No,
but
not
that's what we're
necessarily.
here to figure out today.
Right.
We're going to be discussing the Korean film Parasite, which just won Best Picture this year at the Academy Awards, Best Picture and Best Foreign Film.
Yeah. I believe
Swept
Best
it.
Director as well.
Really, best
Yeah.
director.
I believe.
They're going to have like a global category soon.
So what was let's before we get too far into it, let's just yes or no? Watch it, worth it.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're okay
Okay.
with subtitles,
It's-
definitely.
Yeah,
watch
which if
it.
you're not okay with subtitles, what's wrong with you? Just read.
Yeah.
It's okay.
You know, in the version
It's
we
true.
watched, like, I wish that they would have had, like, the high contrast
Well-
subtitles,
well,
because
it's
it was,
like-
like, a little hard to read at some points.
I will
Oh,
agree,
that is
but
true.
but so many people I've heard, especially older white entitled people. I'm just kidding.
There it is.
I'm just messing around.
He's not kidding. His
a little.
address is.
A little. But like movies like this one, they're beautiful. There are beautiful aspects about the setting and everything, but you're not watching it to see everything that's going on. You're meant to watch and know what the characters are doing. So, I hear a lot of people complain about, like, well, I don't like watching movies with subtitles because I have to read and I'm not getting to pay attention to what's happening on screen, or I'm missing all the beautiful stuff. And it's like, there are some films where that kind of makes sense. Like, you want to see the beautiful way that they shot the film. And there's some
Yeah.
beautiful things about this house and this movie and in the setting. But at the end of the day, like, if you don't ordinarily like movies with subtitles, you're not going to miss a whole lot in this particular film by reading the subtitles.
Correct, yeah.
Give it a shot. It's good.
Well,
I
maybe
think it's
maybe
worthwhile.
watch it twice.
Yeah.
Go through and watch the subtitles, and then.
Which I'm really surprised to learn that there's a lot of people out there that don't watch movies more than once.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like that if it's a good movie, it should be like a piece of art where every time you go back to it, you get something new out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, yeah, there's certain movies where it's like, unless you just want something mindless on like Transformers, that it's not like you're going to go back and be like, oh man, I never noticed that Bumblebee did this because blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't think...
Are you using that as example for Transformers?
Yeah.
Well,
You think you can watch Transformers more than once and get something out of it?
I don't
why
think
he's
so.
saying
That's
you
why
could
I'm
never
saying,
watch
like-
Transformers
Right,
more than once.
yeah, but that's why I love Wes Anderson movies so much, is you watch them again and again, and almost every time I've watched a Wes Anderson movie, I notice something different, whether it's the scenery in the backdrop or whether it's a character development, whatever. But yeah, I think it's worth watching.
So-
Honestly,
yeah, so-
Parasite, it's a...
A Korean foreign film.
Mm-hmm.
It's set in you would guess it's Korea, and it's about a Korean people.
There it is
group.
again. Surprise, surprise.
Sometimes you're gonna say
different-
Korean.
Two different families: a Korean poor family and a Korean wealthy family. And so the basic storyline is again the poor family. Ultimately, over a period of time, takes over all of basically the service roles inside of this wealthy house. You have the son who's tutoring the daughter, the sister who is tutoring the or taking care
like
of
art
the young
therapy.
son.
Yeah.
The mother who becomes the housekeeper, and the father who becomes the driver. And they don't know, the wealthy family doesn't know that these people are related at all. They have no idea that they're...
And they somewhat lied to get all of these positions.
Yes, yes.
The dad was an actual driver, right?
That's what I picked up,
Yeah,
is that he had
at
done
one
that
point,
before.
Yeah.
He was a driver, but they just got the other driver fired. So that was a little sketchy, but he was a good driver.
Yes.
Like the rich guy was not dissatisfied with him as a driver.
Except for the one part that he almost got hit. Like, there were these little things. There was some little things that kept happening to each group of people where it was almost like they were going to get made. Like but at any rate, I guess the cliff notes, to keep it very simple, and then we can kind of talk about it more. The family moves in. They take over everything. there's a power struggle that goes on behind the scenes between the old housekeeper and the new family, because the old housekeeper, who was a throwback from the family before, had her husband living in some safe room in these wealthy individuals' home.
Yeah, which the wealthy individuals didn't even know existed.
They didn't even know existed, but this old
Right.
guy, or
Yeah,
this
the house was built by another dude, and
Yeah.
he
Famous architect.
used the housekeeper when he lived there, and when he sold it to the new family, he highly recommended her. And then you find out some things about her and her husband concerning the house, that also lends to that perfect title called Parasite, where these basically it's just these people that are living off of other people, and the state of what it looks like to take advantage and live like an insect in a certain way. you know, or a rodent.
Well, and and that the guy living in the basement is hiding from creditors, and that's the reason that he can't get out or he can't leave. And I guess being borrowing money is a serious thing over in Korea, I suppose.
Maybe depending upon who you borrow from. Just like
exactly.
In the United States.
They're like, no, it's just the Bank of Korea. They'll come and get you.
Right.
Oh,
right.
damn.
No, they have guys.
Right. But.
So let me allow me to finish. Allow me to finish the wrap up here.
Sorry.
So essentially, as this I guess train wreck plays out towards the end of the movie, after some people start dying, in order, like, the power struggle gets so intense that people are starting to try to kill other people. The father of the poor family are anti-heroes, or whatever you want to call them. He ends up stabbing and killing the father of the wealthy family who he has been working for, and then he goes and he escapes. He disappears. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how the movie finishes up. Is that the wealthy individual, I can't remember his name, Mr. something or other. He had almost an American name, didn't he?
Yeah.
But at any rate, he dies, and the father escapes, and then of course everybody else. And then the sister dies too, doesn't she?
The sister dies, father dies. The guy that's living in the basement, he dies. His wife dies, and that's what sends him off on a rampage.
Full spoiler alert.
Yeah, all spoiler alert.
You just know by now, if you're gonna watch this or listen to this, just anticipate us telling you everything.
Yeah, Paladin Entertainment. That's what it's going to be essentially.
Well, and I think that a lot of things, like, hopefully you've already watched it by this point. And you're like, well, it's one of those movies that you're like, what do they mean by that? And I think that's what we're here to talk about today, because I took something away from it that was very different. Because and I think the important part that we have to note in the recap there of it, that all of their positions that they got dishonestly. He wasn't an accredited tutor. He didn't graduate or anything. He was just good at English. His buddy didn't want
tolerably good at English, like good enough to be passable.
Right.
Yeah.
His buddy didn't want other college kids flirting with this girl that he had a crush on. So he wanted his buddy, who he thought he could trust, to come in and tutor her. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just think that it's a little bit weird that it seemed contradictory to me, and maybe it's just my opinion, but it seemed contradictory to the global climate of how we should address and treat the poor right now here in America.
Okay, so explain that. How so?
I just think that
identify what it is that how we view how to approach the issue, and then what makes this film different.
Absolutely. I think that right now that we are put with the concept that if we help a poor person out, they're going to use that to get on their feet and for their come up, so to speak, and get their head in the game. And now they're going to be reintroduced into a more middle class society. Mm-hmm. And I feel like you were hoping for that. I was hoping for that the whole time, that it's like, okay, maybe they were dishonest with how they got their jobs. Where's the come up? Where are they going to start? Like, if some rich guy tells you that you're stinky, I'm going to go take a shower. These people just, like,
wear a cologne.
They just act like even more of an asshole because they got told that they were stinky, you know?
Yeah.
That's my opinion. I don't know, and I feel like it was kind of that you. I didn't like the poor people. I didn't feel like, yes, you sympathize for them, but they're just such dicks along the way that it's really hard to say, oh man, these poor people, like, yeah, they deserve to go in and drink all the rich people's booze, even though they've done nothing wrong to the poor people at this point.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that. I think that the rich people in this film are not victims for sure. I think what I really like about it is that there's character depth to it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
certain characters do change over the process, and I would have to say that it's more like the father and the son that seem to change and develop as the film goes on. You see it with their dad and how he doesn't like to be considered smelly. He doesn't like to, like he begins to wake up and realize, oh, I smell bad to these people, and it's an insult. I don't like that. Like, who are you?
Yeah.
And then even when he has that weird interaction with his wife, and they throw that little, eating party in the living room, and they kind of get at each other's necks, like they play it off like they're not playing around, but that's real emotion. We're meant to feel that.
Yeah.
So we know that he's developing along the way, and he's at least realizing, oh, what am I doing? Like, not enough to change at this point,
Yes.
because he still makes a decision that's kind of a little nuts. Like he stabs the rich man. So we know that he's not like completely changed, but at least he's thinking about it. You know that he's conscious. And by the end of the film, the son sets out of his love for his father, because the family unit is just so strong in this. Like, if there's anything, like, they're just so bound to one another.
Yeah.
By the end of the film, he at least makes this declaration that this is what he's going to do with his life, and he's going to go and do it legitimately. And even at the very beginning, he makes a note to say to his dad, I'm not, like, these papers that I've forged from the college that I'm going to, it's only temporary that it's a lie. Like, it's going to be a real truth later.
Right.
Like, I'm going to make enough money to go to this school and do this. And he has, like, legitimate desires.
Right.
And by the end of the film, he says, like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go out and make a life, and so that I can purchase this house and get back to my father.
Right.
So you know that there's some stuff going on. There is some depth. It's not to excuse their behavior whatsoever, but all of these films, anytime we're watching something like that, especially when we're dealing with big concepts like class, like the rich and the poor, we're meant to come to this middle ground and really kind of accept and see how some people are really just the same. How are the characters that are living off this rich family the same as the people who are bringing them into their house and paying them to do all this work? At the end of the film, I don't think that there's anybody that I just really love. The rich family's kind of like, they're shitty people. They're victims, but they're snobby, and they're not.
I would say they're airheaded.
Yeah,
the
mother in particular.
Yeah,
particular.
yes,
is very
but the way
airheaded,
that they view
right.
other people that are not the same as them, they don't view these people as the same, and they make these comments that show that they value them as how they help the household and how they, take care of it, but they don't value them as people necessarily.
Sure.
Yeah, but I can sympathize with that. I think it's a hard thing to talk about when you talk about business, and you talk about pleasure, and you talk about seeing somebody as a human, but seeing somebody as an employee that's doing something for you. And that the one I wish I could remember his name, but the father of the wealthy household makes a comment about that at one point, about the poor father, and how he says he almost crosses the line. Like he almost goes over that line of the business side of the relationship. And I think that's to me that was very pivotal to because it was almost like the poor father didn't like that. He knew that line was there, and he despised it. And that's where I think towards that what made him snap towards the end is the whole idea that he was, I don't want to say looked down on, but there was like this shame of who he was as a person, and even like down to his smell. His smell was even offensive to these wealthy people. But I think it's kind of ironic too that, and I think you can maybe look at these people. They come along, they do all this stuff, and then they end up killing what is feeding them.
Yeah.
Like they don't.
Does kind of like what a parasite does.
I mean,
yeah.
Essentially.
what it would. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, okay, so I did think that it was kind of interesting, though, that, like, the overarching, like, looking at it from the beginning of the whole, and they get this rock that, like, is supposed to bring them prosperity.
Oh, yeah, that was interesting.
And
yeah.
I thought that was really cool in that one scene, that you're thinking, like, okay, it's a stone, and then in this one scene, their apartment is flooding, and the stone floats to the top of the water.
Right.
And so the kid that had it, he carried it with him the whole time, right? And he was able to find it again.
Yeah, which is really impressive and interesting because he finds it floating in the house, but then later he puts it in the river and it sits. So it was only floating for that one period of time.
Exactly.
And then the second time it was...
Right, because I thought when I saw it floating, I'm like, oh, so what, was it not a real rock? Was it made of wood or something? But I think that was... symbolic of that he was going to have that come up eventually, and that at the end of the movie he ends up being the rich guy in the house because he worked for it, not because he because I was expecting him to kind of, and maybe that's my own personality, but I was expecting him to just the family to mooch off these people and to use that to get their come up, maybe even to him marry his daughter and all of that. And I think that maybe that was part of the story as well.
Yeah, so maybe I guess my question would be is to your comment earlier about how we kind of view this idea that if we just help out those in need, that they'll just do what they're supposed to, and make something of themselves. And you kind of see that as illegitimate. But essentially, even though it incorporated a lot of these concepts of murder and whatnot,
Deceit,
lies. Deceit. Yeah, at the end of the day,
being...
you could still say that the son takes that and betters himself because of it. More maybe because of the consequences of his own actions than it is necessarily a handout that the family gives, But they go through this big ordeal, and at the end of it, the son's like, no, I'm going to make a better choice. I'm going to do something different.
Yeah.
I'm going to set a plan. See, the dad makes that comment and says the only way to be happy in life, the only way to make it through is to not have a plan.
Right.
Well, that means doing the kind of stuff that they were doing this whole movie, just grabbing onto whatever opportunity that they could take, and then they don't have to face disappointment, they don't have to face loss or failure.
Yeah.
And by the end of the film, the son's like, no, I think maybe the better thing to do is to have a plan, and I have a plan, and it's going to benefit somebody else, not just myself.
Yeah. Right. No, exactly. I would agree, and one that there actually had to be that trauma and that type of
hitting rock bottom.
Right. The rock bottom and the goal. Because, another spoiler, his father locks himself, and that's how he escapes punishment for murdering this rich guy.
Yeah, he actually runs out and then runs back into the garage, into the house, and then down into, the hidden bunker.
Hides in the safe room that no one knows about. And that's why his son has to get wealthy to buy this house now.
Right.
And
which
you do,
he does.
And I will say this, the father has remorse. You go back and see that, he's in that basement, below the basement, and he is looking at a picture of the
wealthy,
rich man, and he says, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry for what I've done.
No, right.
So he makes those steps. It's just kind of like on the offset of the consequences of his actions more than anything else. He realizes this is the person I am. That's what those comments really do for him as a character when he hears about his smell. It's this wake-up call, wait a minute. I can pretend that I'm just like them in these ways, but in reality, I'm still this thing that's taking advantage and doing something that's not legitimate. And it's an aggravation. It's just like all of us, when we wake up to the truth about who we are, our first initial reaction is, oh, I'm angry. That's not, screw you, it's pride, it's ego. Until it kind of levels out. Maybe that's through consequences, or maybe it's through some time.
Well, and I feel like definitely at the climax, when he's having the dad who's the driver dress up like an Indian and do this stuff that's part of their thing, and it's it's cute because it's the dad doing it, but just having the driver do it, he's not paid to be an actor or a plaything for his kid, but now because he's on the payroll, he's doing this, whereas in a good mood, that wouldn't be a big deal. But it's almost like when you have to go to a horrible job and you're working as a server and you're in a bad mood and you have to sing birthday songs to people that you're just like,
Yeah, but-
why am I at this point in my life, you know? And I feel like that's what made him snap almost.
Well, that too, and it's the realization, like, what are the characters going through at this moment? They just, like, fought for their lives, and they have these really hefty things going on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
He slept in a homeless shelter that night, and he dug through and found clothes that belonged to somebody else because they lost literally everything, only for him to go back to the rich family who are completely oblivious to everything else that's going on. They're throwing a party for their son, which is, like, that's legitimate. That's understandable. But while they're throwing a party and inviting all their friends over and spending all this money and drinking wine and cooking out and celebrating, there's a whole region of people that are suffering because of the storm the previous night. And so while they're dealing with all this big stuff, now he has to dress up like an Indian. And I don't think it was necessarily that he had a problem dressing up like an Indian and he was having to realize this is part of the job. I think it's more of like a realization, like, these people have no idea what I'm experiencing right now, and they don't care about me. And then whenever his daughter gets stabbed, and the only thing that the rich man is concerned about is getting his son to the hospital, he kind of, like, that's another reassuring, or that's another moment where he realizes this guy doesn't give a crap about me. He doesn't know what I'm going through. Now, granted, that's because he's chosen this life. He's living this life behind the scenes, and he's having to do all this stuff. But he's still coming to that realization that these people have no idea what I'm going through in life.
And I respect that a lot, and I think it's always one of those interesting psychological takeaways when you say, oh man, like you said, there's this burden of feeling and emotion and a circumstance that we put off on these people, and they go, oh well, these people don't care about me, and it's like, yeah, but you don't care about them either.
Right, and that's true, and that's not to make excuses for him at all.
I know that's not what you were
or
getting
making
at.
the rich people as the villain.
That it's an interesting psychological takeaway, because I get this a lot in my own life right now, is that I think about all these set of circumstances going on and all the stuff that's affecting my life, and I go, oh well, that's all good and fine, but do I stop and look at other people's lives and go,
right,
well, what about them? Like, what?
Yeah.
I won't say what are they going through, but again, this is, I took away from Parasite the idea that there are questions in our socioeconomic structure that are left that are really wide open. I like the fact that they weren't overly preachy about anything. It would seem like, like it was one of those that really, it calls your attention to human emotion and human parody, period. Like, it doesn't really try to tell you anything beyond just bringing it to your attention and saying, hey, here's some open-ended, I don't want to say here's some open-ended question, because I think there was more definitive idea or thought behind it than that. Like, this is what we're trying to show you, but it wasn't so disgustingly in your face. I didn't feel that anything was overly politicized at all. That it was just that, like, it was the human drama.
No, the best movies are movies that don't have agenda. But in reality, in the totality of life, the best things in life don't have agendas. And there might be a small agenda with the film. Like, of course, the director wants you to experience and see different things. That's why it's there. But the best films out there are the films that just, they lay everything out and just say, look at it.
Yeah.
Come up with your own conclusions.
Yes.
Figure out what you want to see from it. And I might be oblivious or naive to the fact that there might be an actual political agenda that they want to express in there, and I'm just not like seeing it. Maybe that's what it is. I'm just kind of thankful that I'm able at least to look at the film, watch it, and draw my own conclusions about the characters and all. So
yeah. Well, and I think that's probably one of the cool things about foreign films too, that maybe they were like, oh no, the political agenda's right there,
yes.
but
right.
yes.
Or it's a
completely
completely different agenda, because it's coming from a completely different group of people.
Yeah,
you
a
know?
different place.
No,
It's
no,
not
exactly.
an American film; it's a Korean film.
Right.
So it's interesting to get to watch it and kind of put through their lens.
Yeah.
Yes.
And now that's something that I think that we're going to talk about in the future as well, is just what makes a good movie. Cinema as a whole, even maybe some films or some TV shows that actually, you know, try to broach that, like Westworld and stuff, that
Oh
try
my
to
God,
really,
yes.
really cross over that line into being that cinema quality.
Can I ask what your favorite? Because I want to tell you what my favorite scene out of that whole movie is. So I want you guys to be
Parasite?
prepared. Yeah, your favorite scene.
Oh man, that's rough. I might have to watch it again to like have an actual favorite scene from the movie.
Or something that just you got a kick out of, like when you watch it, you're like, okay, yeah,
Right.
I identify with that.
I really enjoyed when he goes down there to try to make peace with the dude, and he like puts that garrote around his neck and drags him back there, and then he's like trying to run away, because you're like, dude, you just like killed this guy's wife, locked him back in the basement, and now you're like, hey y'all, you doing all right? Like, no, man, that guy's not gonna be happy when you go down there and see him.
Right.
I think my favorite moment in that whole movie is when they return back to their home and they see that it's all flooded and they're wading through the water, and the daughter goes into the restroom and she reaches above the ceiling and finds her cigarettes, and she's sitting on the toilet as it's like spewing water, this gray gross water through the lid. She sits down on the lid, she lights up the cigarette, and she says, well, fuck it, and she smokes a cigarette
That was
while the
great.
toilet's blowing up.
Yes.
Like, yeah, I kind of identify that. When my life is just falling apart, I'm just gonna light up a cigar and say screw it.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite scenes is when they're sitting there at the beginning of the movie making the boxes, and they're like, oh, they're fumigating. And they're like, shut the windows. And the dad's like, no, leave the windows open. He goes, we'll get fumigation for free. and they're sitting there, and their whole apartment just gets filled with this nasty, thick.
Which, at least, you know, when they were doing the boxes and everything, at least they take a moment. That's the first moment you kind of see that they at least want to improve and be better at what they're doing, because they throw on that video and they see that girl like flipping and doing those pizza boxes as quick as she could, and the dad's like, oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, right,
And then
but
he tries to do it.
Yeah, but then they end up messing up
Doing it wrong.
a quarter of the boxes.
Yeah.
And so I think that lends to the idea of the shortcut. But anyway, we're out of time here.
Yeah, a little
over. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for
Always
tuning in.
appreciate.
Be sure to subscribe. Comment below if there's any other movies that you think are noteworthy that we should watch and discuss.
Review.
Yeah.
All in all, Parasite was, I would give it, I don't want to say 5 stars, but
It's 5 out of what, 10?
no, 5 out of 5.
Oh, wow, okay.
I thought it was a really good movie for what it was. Like it was a foreign film, not a huge fan, but still a great movie. The storyline, it was engaging, it kept you entertained.
Right. Made you think.
There's some deep things to think about. The acting was great in it. All in all, I think it was I think it was worth the watch. I will watch it again, and again what do you call it? The best picture. That was definitely. It was definitely. I have nothing to compare it, because I think it was the only serious movie I saw. But that's okay.
Yeah.
Anyhow, y'all, thanks for watching.
you.
We'll catch you next
Take
time.
care, y'all.
Yeah.